Hello, everybody. Welcome to part 2 of episode 23 of Wireheads, a Cyberpunk RED podcast where we talk primarily about Cyberpunk RED, except for the days where we aren't. But anyway, I am Diamond Dust. I am a professional GM on StartPlaying, and I do a lot of streaming over here on Twitch. And of course, joining me, and by the way, he's got a subathon going on. Go check him out.
I do.
Go over there. Go have a look.
Hello, my name is Emmerron. I am also a Cyberpunk RED content creator and professional GM over on StartPlaying. This is my whole gig. As Diamond mentioned, right now I am doing a subathon for the month of September. If you're watching this on Spotify, you'll actually see in the video below me here, there's a donation goal thing. So if you do want to come by my stream on Twitch and support me during the month, I do appreciate that quite a lot. We have some fun incentives and things, so you guys can check all of that out. However, that is not what we're here to talk about today. But yes, hello, I'm Emmerron. I'm the other guy who works here. I'm the co-host of the podcast along with Diamond. So welcome in. If this is your first time, you got a lot of content that you can catch up on in no particular order. But we welcome you in, and now you know who we are. Which is dangerous, maybe. So, with that said, Diamond, what are we talking about in your half of the episode today?
All right. Well, I think I need to have just a quick moment of prelude here. So, there I was, being the dirty fucking Redditor I am, I guess, because it's like, oh, Reddit! Oh, Reddit!
As one does.
All right. I was over on r/Cyberpunk RED. And, well, and also one of my players, the person who plays Hyperdrive, Chibi, if you're watching, hello, I hope you're having an awesome day, had sent me a screenshot about a post. It was CMK, what is actually the point of installing Mantis Blades? Now, the person goes on, and the post is probably still out there on Reddit, and you can go give your ideas, comments. Please be fucking nice to each other. God damn it.
Civility, please.
Yes.
Yeah. When we mention these things, they are not signals to harass. They are signals to inform.
Don't harass, but go ahead, chime in. I mean, I don't know if I chimed in yet, but I feel like, I can give my 2 cents here. But
it's a worthy discussion point for sure, though, because there's tons of cyberware in Cyberpunk RED, especially if you look at some of the DLCs that are like, why would I ever install this? And
because I want warm kibble, Emmerron.
Because I want warm kibble. Yeah, see, exactly. But it's one of those things, though, where like you sometimes just need someone with an alternating perspective from yours, or maybe a slightly different purpose for why they play the game, to maybe explain, here's why we do this. But yes, I know this is not the body of the discussion we are going to have today, but it's inspired it. Yeah. So please go on.
So anyway, look through the comments, it's typical Redditor, Reddit stuff. Not as bad as other subreddits, okay? However, the first person, or I don't think it's first person, but the top comment that showed up in here. One of my favorite comments was, "What's the point what is the point of installing Mantis Blades?" And they said it's at the end of the blades. And it's just like, internet points to that person in particular. But the real Fly Dog, I don't know if you watch our podcast, but because they're fucking cool. If you're looking for the most utilitarian way to reliably turn people to ghosts, you go to Gunmart and get a bog standard Militech rifle with a 50 Yeti op and call it a day. I don't know why it would be Militech. If you go to Gunmart, you're getting something a little less. But if you're feeling froggy You spend the 10 extra clams to get surplus Canadian Forces trading shard, which I'm a little concerned of what that might be. I feel like I might be missing a joke. It must be something on 240s for you 70s. This must be some joke that
you on war crimes, because Canada has the most war crimes committed per capita, based on their military.
But like, I don't know if this is some 70s jokes on 240s to understand, you fucking kids. But anyway, but if you want to be the kind of slicing and dicing murder machine that motherfuckers still talk about in 10 years when they are old, fat, and raising genetically modified alpacas in their sleepy Colorado mountain town with their share of the big score, you go for style, baby. And you know what? The Real Fly Dog, here's to you for adhering to one of the 3 rules of Cyberpunk. That's right. That's what the topic is today. Now, whoever posted the comment, I do appreciate, you bringing up that discussion, because we did talk about that when we were talking about the upgrade or like the enhancements that came in for the 3 melee cyberwares that show up in the CEMK. And
there was a broader discussion too about all the weapons cyberware, like the Gorilla Arms were like the big focus on like the original release, where it's like, why would I ever get this instead of going linear frame and doing martial arts and all of that? And it's like, because sometimes you don't want to spend the IP. Like there are, especially for weapons, like, because weapons have one function, violence, right? So why would I pick one particular mode of dispensing violence over another? The answer is it's varied, honestly. Well, sometimes it just looks cooler. Sometimes it actually achieves a particular purpose.
I also point out, and if anybody's wondering, Mantis blades are literally just a single unit you get installed to your arm. You don't have to buy the mount and then get the weapon to put on the fucking mount like you had to do back in my day, back in the 40s, you fucking kids. All right? We had it harder back in our day. And then also on top of that, if you have paired Mantis blades, you don't have to get grip feet.
Yeah.
So you save a lot of money, and you save yourself some humanity points in the process. But anyway, the 3 rules of Cyberpunk. What are they? Well, over here in the core rule book of Cyberpunk RED. Now, I understand there's a 4th one, but this is Ripper Jack being a fucking troll. We'll talk about that later. But the 3 main rules: style over substance, number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2, attitude is everything. And 3, live on the edge. So we're going to start off with the rule in question. Style over substance. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how well you pulled the gig off. That's cool. But nobody's going to remember a bunch of Joe Schmoes in fucking Militech tactical gear that's all blacked out, and, they're all looking pretty standard BOG uniform. Very cool. All right, what's the next thing in the scream sheet? Oh, shit. Hey, this person's got a sick jacket, and they're fucking robbing an Oasis convenience store for the 5th time in a week. That's some cool shit right there. Fucking sticking it to a corp that way. So, and this is the kind of shit that gets me fired up, is when we really get on about this kind of stuff. Yeah. And, and the reason why I always look to these 3 core rules, yes, I understand. We have a rule book that talks about how firefights work, how net running works, how, fixing yourself works. But at the end of the day, there are 3 major rules of Cyberpunk, and some of these people miss this one because they have to power build. They have to have always the best gear, even though, yes, it's not that stylish. They have to be G.I. Dunno. Or porcupines.
So, Prepper Jack points out, dress like Liberace. Check.
Absolutely. If that's what your style is, fucking go for it. People will remember you for it.
The important thing is to be a distinct personality, and that's like the big thing this rule gets at the heart of, is like, be a big personality. You don't get to be Johnny Silverhand by playing it safe or laying down in a corner. While the firefight's happening and you're just trying to stay away from it. No. You're shooting back in the firefight and probably getting shot yourself. The point is that when the other guys are flatlined and your crew's still up, like, people remember the bullet holes you come back with. The scars tell a story of their own. And this is also one of those things where like Diamond kind of hinted at, there's a whole DLC that was called Must Have Cyberware Deals Buy Now. That was like mostly cyberware that would definitely come with an as seen on TV logo. And like there is some utility in some of the cyberware. Like there are things in there that are definitely useful for one thing or another, but for the most part, they are very flavorful and they still cost humanity. They still cost eddies. And so you might ask yourself, why the fuck would I get a kibble warmer in my arm? And sometimes the only answer that really matters to that is because you thought it was cool, or you like the idea of why would my character have it? Well, because your character in Cyberpunk, which I feel like there's some RPGs where this isn't as heavily emphasized, and Cyberpunk is very much one that does, where some games don't emphasize your character as a person in the setting super well. Your sheet is there to give you your statistics, how you role play those statistics. You're kind of left to your own devices on how to do it. Whereas Cyberpunk RED at every level, it feels like does a great job of like systemizing your personality and like really making sure that that is a part of your character every bit as much as what your stats are, what your skills are. If anything, they inform how you role play that character, not detract from it.
And I suppose, like for example, my fixer Skimmer. So to understand, the piranhas, they're a party gang. These guys really aren't known for, being strongly business oriented or seen in business wear. I care to think of Skimmer as the front of a mullet. She's the business in the front. So she is wearing a suit that is very much, it dons piranha colors. It has the piranha logo. It's her thing. That is, what she wears out. That it's her gang colors. And it's what screams to her. Now, and it'll make her stick out like a sore thumb amongst the other piranhas. But people are going to remember when she comes walking, because, like, who else has fucking giant pauldrons like that?
Right. And, like, I think, like, when I think of my characters, like, 8-Bit's a little more nondescript, but he's kind of built that way. He's meant to be someone you don't notice. He gets in, gets your information, and then gets the fuck out. And he likes it that way. And it's like, not every character needs to be like these giant, bombastic, like, I am like this person. It's your acts can sometimes sound off louder than your dress or your, actions in the moment. It's like, what does it calculate up to? And you find your personality in other ways. Like 8-Bit was an avid gamer. He likes his TCGs. He plays Yellow's TCG a lot. He goes and he plays Elflines in his spare time. And all of that like contributes to some of his personality and like the kind of person he is and how he relates to the world around him. But by contrast, my character Virgil grew up in a booster gang. He knew what it was like when the NCPD came in, cracked down, and like wrongly imprisoned or killed a lot of his friends and his family, and like understands his place in the wider scope of Night City. And for him, like all of it is conflict. So what does he do? He goes out on the street, and the people who have seen him will remember his red light tattoos and the fact that he's like half chrome at this point, and definitely a borderline cyber psycho. So like it's one of those things where like if you have a really firm idea of who your character is, when they do something, say something, or act in a particular way, it's notable because of them being them, right? Like it's not just another edge runner talking, it's Virgil talking, right? And or like a Neon Inferno for my crew, it's like it's not just any random media doing or saying something or presenting something, it's Matchlight making those comments and doing those things. And like that matters because he has a reputation.
And in the case of Dia, and like I've noticed this actually even has applied a little bit over towards real world just a little bit, but like looking game wise, anyone who mentions like like crystal blue, like solid blue eyes, and brilliant purple hair with tinges of blue throughout it, that's usually the first things that people associate with her, followed by neon lighting throughout her jacket, with the bright blue shining off of her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just you gotta find what screams you. Like in the case of like Morgan Blackhand, what do we all think of as soon as we hear Morgan Blackhand? I mean, Emmerron.
I mean, it's in the name. The Black Hand and the fact that he went toe-to-toe with Adam Smasher, like the two most notable things about that man.
And the big trench coat.
Yeah, the big trench coat. Like he has the gruff look of a Blade Runner without being a Blade Runner. And the fact that he always brought his, like when you learn a little bit about Morgan and the kind of person he is, the fact he brought most of his targets in when he was sent to get someone, and the bounty was dead or alive, he brought them in alive every single time, which is wild. Just no matter how big or scary they were, he brought them in alive every time. That's the crazy part.
And then, for example, a name that's dropped in, Cyberpunk 2077, and some people are like, well, who the fuck is that? Is Boa Boa Wayland, who is known to be this absolutely brutal edge runner that showed up from Montego Bay, Jamaica, who, has this very messy, violent look about them, covered in scars, and carries this massive fucking knife with them.
Yep.
Like
Wayland Boa is scary as fuck.
Oh yeah, like I'm glad that Boa Boa is not around the 40s.
Yeah.
Boa Boa scares me. It's maybe about as much as Adam Smasher scares me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's an inappropriate reaction when you learn more about him. Like, he was a name, I'll admit that, like, when I first booted up 2077, because that wasn't my first exposure to Cyberpunk. I'd been playing Red for close to a year when the game actually dropped, and I'd never heard of Boa Boa before. And so when Jackie casually drops the name like it's someone I should know, I'm like, who the fuck is this? And then I read up on him and I'm like, oh my god, why do I not know about this?
I mean, chat, just to give you the description of Boa Boa Wayland. Wayland is a tall, imposing Jamaican with a full set of braided dreadlocks. He sports piercing yellow cybernetic eyes that are trademarked to his organization, the Water Leopards. He has a light tattoo of snakeskin pattern all over his body, which his troops nicknamed him Boa Boa. There are names that will instill fear. And it's just like, you gotta have that style, that substance. Like, people are going to remember, like from Neon Inferno, people are going to remember folks like Wei, this absolute hard-hitting martial artist. I mean, fuck. And I feel bad because I came in on the ass end of Neon Inferno season 1, but the Rocker Boy, the name escapes me at the moment. The one that literally stood up to a fucking tank.
Yeah, well, oh no, you're talking about Zeke.
Zeke
was the Rocker Boy who was on the tank, because we had two actually. We had him, and then we had Erica's character, who started off as Pixel and changed her identity partway through the season to avoid her father and turned into Persephone. So it's really, but yeah, those moments are like defining, where you just like, I'm just gonna play a bass guitar in front of this fucking tank because it eyes me down and gets ready to blow me away. And that's where I'm like, when you want to write potentially tragic things, that's where I was like, I'm not afraid. I will shoot this man. And then Maya comes screaming in with one of the nomads they had and just dropped a fucking grenade down the hatch and just like, yeah, eat my dick, and just like popped off. Like, that's the shit that like that's edge runner shit. That's what when we say style over substance, that's all of that. All of that is beautiful.
Oh yeah, and culture. Celsius with the heterochromia cyber eyes. That's that's iconic to Celsius. And style over substance. At the end of the day, whether it be how you look, an MO, or however you decide to handle business, it will it's what you'll be remembered for. Rule number 2: attitude is everything. You think dangerous, you become dangerous. You think weak, you become weak. And at the end of the day, it's just like your attitude, the way you walk into the room, like if you're a suit walking into the boardroom, getting ready to stand up to the bigger dogs at the table, and I'm going to show some love to the to the corpos, because you guys have a seat at this table. You're walking into a room and you have to demand that attention. Perhaps you're the lawman that as soon as you get out of that vehicle, people start running because they know that you're going to deal business. It is very much either you stand up to everything and you push back harder, or you just let it roll over you.
Yeah, and I think it's also something to be said about, like, I can't count how many times I've gone into a Cyberpunk character and just been like, I need to be as, not necessarily aggressive, but I'm pushy, right? Like, anytime I'm playing Cyberpunk, I pull out the most assertive part of myself in one way or another, and I'm like, okay, like, you're gonna listen to me because I'm important. And it doesn't matter. The facts of the situation, whatever others might tell you, they don't matter, because I matter more than any of them. Doubters and haters can go take a fucking number. You're talking to me right now. And that's an important thing for us. So, like, and then you work it in from there, depending on the character or whatever. But, like, generally speaking, if your role playing in Cyberpunk is assertive and, like, very forward about, like, this is why you're going to listen to me and what I'm telling you, the drama gets better. Like, and that's like what the stories depend on, is like a sense of drama, right? Even if you are telling a more like comedic story, or like, haha, that's really like a funny little joke in the background kind of thing. The way it's happening, the way the drama around that is unfolding still, is like you feel the stakes more acutely when you're taking it with that serious attitude, I think.
I mean, there's something about and I think like when I finally got it to, when I was finally able to get myself to a point, and I just had, and I still remember, is just like looking down at a certain someone, is just like, you seem to enjoy playing this game of chess, but you've run out of pieces and you have nowhere else to go. Here's my question. Are you ready for what happens next? Because last I checked, queens go anywhere on the board. And at that point, summoning the Hellhounds next to me, it was just like, and it was just causing that threat to happen, that I was so ready to just finally, put the bullet through this guy's head at long last.
Yep. And it's cool. I mean, like, that's the thing. You get those cool moments when you act in accordance with, like, promoting the drama, promoting the you know, escalation to an extent, right? This is part of why I have such a hard time, like we talked about in the first segment. For those of you who are watching this all the way through, we talked a little in the first segment about, you know, why it's hard sometimes to decipher when and how much to escalate things, because like the whole game is kind of escalation. And if you're playing in the direction that like the game tells you to, which we'll cover it in the next rule, because I think it's really speaks to that pretty heavily. But like if you're playing with that style over substance mindset, with the, you know, think dangerous and become dangerous kind of attitude, you know, like that is a great way to tell great stories through your character and to like have them feel like a real person.
And then finally, rule number 3, live on the edge. So, to live on the edge, the edge is this nebulous zone. To clarify, we have the haves and we have the have-nots in Cyberpunk. That is a concept of Cyberpunk that will always exist. And for edge runners, it's where the name comes from. You are living right on this very thin gray line that's known as the edge, where you are risking it all. So that way you are not down with the have-nots, but you know, no matter, unless you go above and beyond, which is very hard to do, you will never be in line with the haves, because there's no way you daily generate billions of dollars into your pocket.
In Cyberpunk, it's not even like haves and have-nots. It's more like you have the have-nots and the have-yachts. If you're not in with the have-yachts, you're a have-not, unless you're an edge runner. And then you ride that line. And if you get the biggest score of your life at the end, maybe one day you'll be with that upper crust. But even then, yeah, like good luck. Good luck. This is your one shot at having any kind of a middle class that's left in the world. Good luck. Have fun. Like that's pretty much all you can do. And it's very appropriate. In that we also talk about like playing for keeps, right? That's like one of the directives I think given to GMs that players need to be aware of. Like when you are GMing Cyberpunk, you are typically going to be playing in a manner that everything's permanent. The stakes matter. You're playing for keeps, meaning if a player has something and they really like that something, as a GM, feel incentivized, because I know every GM who's ever played a game that's nicer to its players, for lack of a better term, they all are like, but what if I did this really evil thing to my players? And Cyberpunk's like, well, if you're doing it right, you're gonna do that, so do that. Like, go steal from them, break into their apartment, like break their shit, take their shit. If they left something unprotected, it deserves to be someone else's. And it's like, it's incredible. And it's like, you need to know not to abuse that. At the same time, though, don't be afraid to use that. It is very compelling in certain aspects of the game.
I mean,
to like push things forward.
I mean, fuck, I pickpocketed, like, you know, you guys saw here a few weeks ago in Black Spark. Fucking devil dude dropped his guard, didn't quite pass the perception check, and you know I walked away with $500 that he just made right out of his fucking pocket. That is, you know, that's on the lower end. However, on the higher end, I about caused a John Wick incident.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. I was thinking, you know, she relies on, you know, being with her dog an awful lot to get 1d6 humanity.
Oh no.
Oh, but what if I did? But I decided no, I wouldn't.
I think that's a ticking time bomb. I think you're gonna one of these days.
We're past that point there, but we as, you know, players and GMs have to understand that, you know, in Cyberpunk, all it takes is one natural one, or one really bad implosion, or one really good explosion, and you are unconscious and rolling death saves. Trust me, I know. It literally happened in the first mission of Emmerron's campaign. I was down in the bottom of Morro Bay, fucking drowning, and just like, oh no.
Yep.
Oh no. And also, we didn't get paid for that job. We ended up losing our paycheck. So we had to make up for it in other means.
I mean, I think technically you guys got half the payment.
Yeah.
Because you got paid for the front end, but then on the back, there was no one to pay you. So it's like, rip. It's a real unfortunate situation, guys. And then it was just figuring out like, how the fuck do we extract value from this? Which, to be fair, you guys got most of the way there. You did get quite a bit of money off of that, but it took a while.
Well, and then what also, really makes it big is, having to take a moment to sit there and hard decisions where it's like you either get A or you either get to pick from column A or column B. And if you pick from column A, you're not going to like what happens with column B. But if you pick from column B, you're not going to like what happens with column A. Pick your poison.
Prisoner's Dilemma, baby. We love those. They're great. Yeah, it's like part of the wonderful, in my opinion, wonderful part of Cyberpunk is how those if you have like 3-4 sessions in a row where you feel like, damn, something keeps going wrong. Like we get like 90% of the way there and something goes wrong, and fuck, I want to like break this glass ceiling, whatever it is, so badly. And then you finally hit that one session where like everything goes right. You do break the glass ceiling. And oh my God, for having all that oppression prior to that moment, it's so much sweeter when you get through the 5th session. You're like, we won! And it's like a victory screech. It's a beautiful time.
Like,
and just to speak to Manic Meat in my chat real quick.
Yeah.
It adds to the tension and atmosphere where your choices really do matter. Exactly. That is 100% it.
And I suppose also at some point as well, remember, the street will always punch back. Your party may have went and done something that they think, oh yeah, they're never gonna find us. That was some famous last words of a certain media in one of my parties.
Yeah, it's so funny. The city can be a terribly small place when it means to be. And the city, this is the best part about Cyberpunk if you're running it as a GM as the book is written. The city should be just as much a character as any of the player characters or NPCs are. And the city's the only one that ever really wins. That's the fun part, is the world will keep spinning no matter who the fuck came out on top in one battle or another. So like, the city's the only one that ever truly wins on the other side. It's beautiful. I love this game for that exact reason, because you're just like, all right, cool. So what happens next? What happens next is the city noticed the fact that you guys were the ones who tore down that corporate, skyscraper. So because of records that were left behind at the scene of the crime that day and a black box that you guys didn't bother to find and pick up, now the corp knows who you are, and it's only a matter of time before they find you. They're looking right now. I pulled that on one of my parties once, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, they know where you live, so that's unfortunate. So I hope you guys get ready to rehome yourselves real quick, because they're coming like now. 15 minutes, that's all you got, and they're probably not going to be merciful.
I mean, and I'm going to throw it out there, just a very much, I'm not going to spoil what happens, but there is a situation where if you do make a dumb decision during the Cyberpunk Edge Runners mission, Kent, you will not survive for this stupid little decision that you made.
My favorite quote from a party who made that reveals absolutely nothing about the context was, It was just a bottle.
It was just a bottle.
Just a fucking bottle. Yeah, it's another one of those John Wick moments, but it's like the opposite of yours, where like yours would have spurred the player to action. This is something that spurs the other guys to action, and it was just a fucking dog. It was just a bottle. Yeah, it's so good. So good.
So, and at the end of the day, just to kind of recap on all of these here, and we've got a lot of time here on our hands, and then of course we'll talk about this forbidden rule number 4. And we'll talk about why it, how it fits in with the 3 rules. So style over substance. At the end of the day, is it going to look good on the screen sheets when that media takes a picture of you doing your thing? Are you going to be the matchlight standing over the smoke, fist in the air? Or are you going to be, Militech 5536 on the AV, leaving another job well done?
Just
being a good
orders,
little just following orders.
Yeah.
Are you going to grow up? And we'll even get closer on this. Are you going to be, and I point to Danger Gal Dossier. Are you going to be Pitbull? Another person that's just part of the riot line, just another wannabe cop. She is a cop, but not that far up. Or are you going to become a hellhound, where your name spurs fear in members of Maelstrom? Like, do you carry that kind of look about you that will scare the shit out of someone, or people will remember you when you do what you do? Attitude is everything. Of course. Are you gonna sit back and take it, or are you going to grab whatever the hell it is causing you trouble by the collar and knock it silly until its cyber eyes pop out? All 6 of them, even, as we've encountered today. I mean, let alone today, my fixer, seeing people of, her own turf getting shot. It's just like, yeah, no, not happening. Nope. Yeah. And getting involved right away. And then finally, live on the edge. Live as if every day is the last day and everything that you care for is threatened. Mm-hmm. Especially now that
probably is.
Especially now that we have or no place like home.
Diamond, it's one of the best DLCs players have ever gotten.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's even better for GMs, though.
It's all fun and games until, you keep pissing off a corporation enough, and then suddenly there's your, few cargo containers that you've slapped together to make a nice little HQ torched
and all of a sudden,
to hell and back.
What's that sound? I think I hear the orbital bombardment coming.
As in the words of a grapevine, Adam. Anyway, and finally, according to Ripperjack, there is a 4th rule. Now, I don't know the full significance of Ripperjack. I know he's a joke in the cyberpunk community. Well, he's not a joke, but he's kind of a joke. Emmerron, do you know the deets on Ripperjack at all?
I don't know exactly who he is, but he's been a consistent comedic relief character that kind of is always like there in the margins to kind of give guidance for the average GM. And in a lot of ways, I think he's like the voice of Artal collectively, like not Maximum Mike, because Maximum Mike is specifically Mike Pondsmith, but Ripperjack is kind of like the company as a whole telling players, hey, you idiot. Here's what you could do.
Listen up, you primitive screwheads.
Yeah, exactly. Listen up, you primitive screwheads is entirely written by Ripperjack for that very reason. And so, rule number 4 is appropriate that it's spoken from him.
Break the rules. But if we had to put it in Ripper Jack's tone, break the fucking rules.
Break the fucking rules. Yep.
All right.
It's important. Yeah.
To clarify,
we talked a little about it. We talked a little about it in part 1, even like why that's important.
Breaking the rules. It does not mean, well, technically I rolled a 1. We're gonna disregard it. I still hit you anyway. You die. That's not at all where this is going, to be honest here. But to break the rules, you are not living as, everyday night citizen. You are not, going to work, being a good little office drone, picking up your kibble at the Oasis. No, you are getting out there. You are smashing cars to go get a fucking payday. Get after it. And also GMs, and I'll even quote from Jay Gray. NPCs I'll quote it from Jay Gray. NPCs for, not having autonomy, they get to break the rules in other ways in how they act. I mean, fuck, Adam Smasher does this.
Yeah.
And I won't say how he breaks the rules. Well, he breaks quite a few different rules, actually. Adam Smasher breaks all the rules.
I think it's like 7 different rules that his character sheet breaks.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's important to remember, in most games, right? Whether you're talking a TTRPG or a trading card game, or, really anything, right? If a rule doesn't serve the table, or you, or your players, and I mean this not as I'm gonna win because I don't have to, my players will never hit an NPC ever again. That's not what we're talking about. What we are talking about, though, is if you look at your players and you say, God damn, my players haven't caught a break. They've rolled, this one in particular, I always think of Connor when I say this, because this has been Connor's fate at more than one table that I've shared with him. You roll your 5th one of the evening, and you're just like...
Poor Nyla.
Fuck, man. I don't want to roll 1s anymore in consequential moments. What you can allow for, even though this isn't in the rules, this is something that our TAL is not written in any book, although if it works at your table, I know for a fact they would encourage you to do it because it makes sense for your table. Do it. You just tell that player on that 6th roll of a critical miss during especially critical part of the story, and you're like, I don't want to see them lose their opportunity for a cool moment, and you tell them re-roll that. And if they feel like they want to argue or not accept that, that's on them. And I've had moments where I'm like, no, I'll let it roll like that. That's fine, because I can think of other ways that make this interesting despite the failure. But if they're really like, I really just am done getting failure after failure tonight, and they're looking defeated, and you're like, re-roll that. Your idea is cool. I want to give it its chance in the sun. We roll another 1, we let it ride, but at least let's give it 1 re-roll and then see what happens. Because at the end of the day, we want to have fun. That's what I always come back to is, at the end of the day, this is a game. It's supposed to be fun. And if you or your players are not having fun because a rule has gotten in your way of doing that, break the fucking rule. Ignore it for 1 roll or whatever. Just ignore it. It's fine.
I suppose in my case, should there ever be something that, I have to write up ever, say, if for some reason I get picked to do a listen up, one of my personal GM mechanics / rules is lucky break, where I sometimes will keep track of a player and see how many ones they accrue over a session, and then sometimes I'll just see all right, I'll roll under their luck score and see if maybe by chance that's not actually how things go. It might look like a failure, however, it has some very odd consequences that actually pay out in their favor. Other times, it's just sometimes re-roll that fucking shit. And I have no issue with doing that. Other times, you know, if they're about to go kill that, if they're about to kill that character, and they want to say, yeah, I'm gonna fucking blow his brains out, unless there's a critical injury that says otherwise, fuck it, blow their brains out.
Right. Like, there's very little reason to, like, every time you players pull the trigger, like, if it's in an open firefight, sure, roll the dice. Like, that's the fun of combat, is rolling the dice in that moment. If your target is on the ground, bleeding out or whatever, and the player wants to shoot at them, and I had to learn this by doing the wrong thing here. So what you should do is just say, yeah, you do it. Just like what Diamond just said. You do that. Just let it happen. Because the other side of that is, at point blank with a person no longer capable of fighting back, you should not be able to miss that shot. So don't open it up to failure. If you roll dice, there's a chance, sometimes better than not, for failure. And it's just leads to really anticlimactic, stupid moments happening where you're like, all right, well, you still have to take the -8 to the aim shot, and then still need to beat the DV13 DV, despite the fact that you could literally just shove it against his temple and pull the trigger. Like, makes no sense. Just let it happen. It's okay. Like, maybe still roll the damage. If you're against a target for which the damage could still matter, then roll the damage and deplete the round off their sheet or whatever. But, like, don't make it like don't give the chance for failure. Just let them succeed at it. If it's just assumed it'll happen, like, one more shot so that they can succeed after the fact doesn't change the fact that that's what's gonna happen. So just let it happen. Much less drama that way.
And with me, one of the other things that I was doing actually before we got the official, like, in the CEMK, the assassination rules in the CEMK. Sometimes it's just, you know, you've literally walked up on this gonk who has not even noticed you there. Fucking choke them the fuck out. Like, they like it. Well. Or, you know, knock them the fuck out. Now, if you choke them out, you know, yeah, you're gonna have, you know, now a human shield that's you know, struggling against you. And you'll just, you know, have to choke them out that way. Oh well, but you know, there is no reason why they can't, why they couldn't just kill instantaneously. So of course, you know, breaking the rules, do it where it helps benefit the story.
Right. Or if it benefits table morale. That's the other side of it. Because sometimes it's not about the story in those moments. It's just about making the players still feel like they have a dog in the fight, and that everything's not hopeless in an unfun way, right? Like, sometimes hopelessness can be fun when played under the right circumstances. There are definitely times where that's not true. And so managing morale is another good reason to break rules, in my opinion.
Yeah. And also sometimes there are some things that may not have like a technical, like, final ruling, so to speak. Sort of like, you know, for me right now, Black Spark takes place in the year 2041. We have just started, like, 2040 was when Mega Building 1 started going up. So housing is going to be hella hard to find if you want an upscale Conapt. So, you know, you're going to need a fixer who knows where to find that stuff and can bargain a deal for you to even get a lease, because you're not with, you know, XYZ Corporation. Yeah, you know, I've included that just for the simple fact that, you know, it fits for the times. But I'm not going to make it, you know, a real pain in the ass. Now, if you're trying to find a penthouse, on the other hand, you might need to be, you know, kissing Rex Royale's ring and hoping that, you know, he might be gracious enough to, you know, take you up on your petition.
Well, not only that, yeah, you better get ready for, like, a move to, like, the east end of the city, because that's pretty much the only safe place where those skyscrapers are going to be found if you're not looking in the Glen or Little Europe. Like if you want an edge runner friendly skyscraper, like, good luck.
And, you know, also, one of the other things I've included in here that's not technically in there is, just it comes from actually Fallout 2D20, and I know it's not a rule, but sometimes I just like to see if something comes up, like hey, you find a spare mag of the ammo that you need for your gun in this guy's pocket because you rolled under the luck score, or just by chance you happen to have had some experience with this. And also sometimes there are some things that you would just know about that because of where you live, that I'm not going to force a local expert. Now if you have to know very specific things, that's different. But if it's just like, this gang runs rampant around here, how they're like, that's not really a local expert check by any means.
Right. If it makes sense for your character to know it, don't be afraid to just tell them their character knows it. Like we had a bunch today where like people were rolling local expert in my game, but almost all of that was like, what do I know about this gang's local operations, or like their normal hideaways, or sort of the politics of this area, right? Like some of that does require a more nuanced understanding, and like that's where we call for rolls, because then it's like, okay, how good is your grasp of that? Like you might know there's a conflict between two gangs, but do you know the particulars? Do you know why there's a conflict specifically? Like that all can matter depending on the context of a gig or situation you're walking into. So like those are the times you call for checks, is like when the lack of that information can make things interesting down the road, because all of a sudden not knowing some internal politics could lead the players to either be at a disadvantage, or it opens the door for them to be shocked later when they're like, yeah, do you know why we're dealing with these people and why we were so like outwardly violent toward them? Because they stole our food. Like they took over our fucking apartment building that we've been living in for the last year. They stole all our food because it was stored there. And now we're trying to fucking figure out how to make ends meet. So what the hell do you want us to do? Right? Should we just roll over and let you kill us because you got hired to do that? Or like, are you gonna actually fucking do a good thing here and help us? Like genuinely things that could happen in Cyberpunk right there that a lack of understanding can lead to. And it makes that scenario way more interesting then because of that lack of information. So yeah, sometimes Fog of War is fun.
All right. But I do think it's Q&A time. Okay. And unlike past weeks, and I really don't have much left to say on the matter of the rules of Cyberpunk, but at the end of the day, these three rules are not so much like you have to follow these because this is what the book says. They help facilitate the style of play that Cyberpunk is trying to offer. So the next time your buddy is just like, well, why would I go and get this specific piece of cyberware when I could get this? And it's just like, well, I think it's it's because it's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, that's all that matters. Like, so Q&A, do you have anything this week, Diamond?
Well, we've got I had 3 questions that had shown up over the week, and I just moved them over to the list. But nice. Do we want to work from the top down?
Yeah. So this came from Manic Meat in my chat. Is what are some notable or unique lesser known companies that would be good info for someone who isn't deeply familiar with the massive amount of world info that is Cyberpunk? So thing number one, or company number one, I should say, that you should probably be familiar with, because like the Neocorps are all like Cyberpunk RED specific, and if all you've ever experienced is 2020 and 2077, you might not even be familiar with some of those names. So like the biggest of those I think is probably Ziggurat. Ziggurat's like a really, really important part of the time of the Red and what kind of happens connecting 2020 and 77. Ziggurat and so Ziggurat, Continental Brands, and what was the third one that I was just thinking of?
Zarafa?
Zarafa, thank you. Yeah, those three are like really, really important corporations that there is a little bit of information about in the core rule book that I would recommend if you want to get into Red specifically and understand some of its nuances as the city is being rebuilt and some of the ways in which that is kind of shifting here and there. Those three are really good to have like an understanding of. As far as like lesser known, I don't know, like minor corporations, Diamond, what do you think?
Ooh, all right. Well, one of the ones that comes off the top of my head, if we're talking like little corporations, it's actually up on the list because they do show up in Cyberpunk 2077, and they were actually fairly decent sized in 2020. We have Raven Microcybernetics, which is right now, you know, hanging off the edge of a building that, you know, they are struggling to, you know, pull themselves back up. Because, you know, a group, Rockland, which we don't even know what happens to Rockland at this point. Right. Like, Rockland just kind of disappeared in, you know, in 2077. We don't even, I mean, they're barely there.
Mentions of them disappear, but, like, it's one of those things where it's possible that the corporation just doesn't get shown and that it still is around. Because Rockland had been around since the 2020s, and we know that they are the progenitor of the Neuroport, which is what revolutionizes society and gets us to 2077 in a big way. Yeah, they're probably actually an even more important corporation to know than like Continental Brands, but like their role in the time of the Red is still relatively small. The notable thing that they are important for is that they are one of the only, I think, corporations that are still making new cyberware in the time of the Red.
Yes.
Most others are repos. Like most other cyberware is like repurposed and refurbished cyberware from other corporations, or it's other corporations taking old parts and putting them together in maybe new configurations. Whereas Rockland's making wholesale new shit. Like they just make new stuff.
And of course, you know, yeah, we did mention Jinguji partially because you know, they're a high retail, they're a high fashion Japanese clothing store that you know, shows up in, you know, 2077, but it has an Easter egg in red. But it's really hard to like really see if there's like any specific small corporations that really stick out. If you look back in, you know, the Neo Tribes book, we have Metacorp. Now it's not, you know, it's not Zuckerberg's Meta. This is a group of nomads that have formed together to become Meta, and also later have I think its subsidiary company DTS.
DTR.
Or DTR, yeah.
Deckard, Tanaka, and Rogers, which is like basically like a logistics giant in 2077. So like you might not know of Meta, but Jackie at one point when you're walking into Konpeki mentions Meta Key, which is their kind of base of operations. It's like a giant floating island that they own. And then DTR is kind of their biggest company that they have a hand in, which is like 90%, I think, of the world's shipping and logistics, especially internationally, is done through DTR. So Meta's maybe an important one to keep in mind too, even though they are not as much of a mover and a shaker by the name that they take normally. In any particular era, to my knowledge.
It's just more there's so many of these smaller corps, and the best way to find these corps is go to the DLCs, go to Black Chrome.
Or if you are someone who owns 2077, because again, that's why our second segment was what it was this week, talking about breaking rules. don't be afraid to say a corporation existed before its time, technically. I've just done that with Jinguji. I didn't know that they had a mention. I'm just like, yeah, Jinguji's here, whatever. Because sometimes you'll see minor corps around Night City when you're playing 2077.
Fun fact. A minor corp that somehow still has survived into the 70s, even though I think they dropped a name, was Meryl, Ashikaga, and Finch. I think it's now just Ashikaga and Finch, or it might be Meryl and Finch.
It's still Meryl, Ashikaga.
Is it still Math? Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Also, of course, we have Hammered Industries, which you will find in the Time of the Red. And you have Gunmart, which is which took over Budget Arms for a time, or like
I can't.
They competed with.
Did they take over Budget Arms?
I don't think they took over. I think they were a strong competitor to Budget Arms during the Time of the Red.
Oh, like they overtook their market. No,
yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. Budget Arms just kind of doesn't exist in the Time of the Red for the most part.
See, I wonder if Faisal may have been responsible for the reignition of Budget Arms, because the Convenience is one of those pull tab guns that's very much like the Slot-O-Matic.
Yeah, the Convenience is well, and then there's also, you can't forget the what is it, Plan B.
Plan B.
The Plan B is a great that's a fun gun. It's literally a smoke grenade by price,
the escape plan. Yeah.
The escape plan. Yeah. Because the escape plan is literally like, I'm buying a smoke grenade that also happens to be a medium pistol, and it's priced like a smoke grenade. So there's really no reason not to get the escape plan, because it's just better. It is more functional. And yeah, like, I don't know if Faisal is the reason for Budget Arms necessarily, because Faisal does have some upper end offerings. It's just that most of his guns have more than one function. Like, Faisal is known for like multifunctional guns, even if like on their own as like just a shotgun, right? Faisal's Dead or Alive is just not as good for the price as a regular shotgun, but it's got a net launcher. So do you want a net launcher and a shotgun, or just a shotgun? That's what Faisal is asking.
Faisal makes a lot of experimental weapons, so it's just like, yeah, I can see why it's poor quality.
Yeah, but
it's not bad.
Gunmart is one of those, though. I should not have forgotten about them. They are one of my favorite minor corporations in the Time of the Red. Them and Segatari, both of them are like very good for different reasons. Yeah. Faisal is okay. Yeah, thank you for typing that in there.
Oh, it's AL, not EL.
Oh yeah. Faisal, SAL. But Segatari, which is SCGOTARI. Yes, it is a combination of Sega and Atari. That they literally combine their logos and everything. It's beautiful. They're like one of the larger gaming corporations in Night City in the Time of the Red. They are the thing that causes Elflands Online to exist. They're that entity. And Gunmart is every cheap-ass gun you could find, just about. Gunmart is responsible for a lot of very cheap guns.
And there's just so many of these smaller corporations that add flavor to the world. Like there's Laserlight. They literally make that jacket. You see, I imagine they are the predecessor to the jacket that V wears in the cover. Same, big tough collar, bullet, resistant jacket. The knobs, it's all there. It's got to be Laserlight.
I would not be surprised. Would not be surprised.
K-Tech makes all these really cool things, such as, the K-Tech hammer, which is, a shotgun and rocket launcher. The Doberman 500, a drone that literally is just, you got yourself a pet dog for $5,000 that will protect you. Looking at you, Sam. And then, you've also got, apps. Zetatech is around. They make one of the best agents of, the time of the Red, before, the net, or before city nets and agents were totally shut down. Well, city nets were shut down, but agents were shut down. No more SIAAs, which
self-adaptive AI, the SAAI.
Yeah.
That's self-adaptive artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Apparently, according to Jay, at some point between the time of the Red and 2077, the agents got a little too familiar with their owners. So something had to be done to tone them the fuck down. So I think we probably spent long enough on this particular question.
Yeah.
So the next one is, how does one add investigation and intrigue to, and I think it was more specific, like, how do I do it personally? And I know that, Diamond, you've talked about it before, but I'd love to hear you rehash some of this.
Oh boy.
How I do it usually is I try to figure out what is the jackpot information that my players are gonna want to know, like full scope, like what does all that look like? And then I find out who are the brokers of each facet of that information, right? What is each person who needs to know something? What do they know, right? About the larger whole. And slowly I'm starting to figure out, okay, when the players learn any two pieces of information and they want to try and start connecting dots, what are the dots that can connect off of those pieces of information? That's kind of become my process for it now, and just breaking it apart. So on my planning sheet for this, what I do a lot is I create a bulleted list of here is what I want my players to eventually learn, and then go in tiers below that, basically. So here is major concept 1 about the larger thing. Here's major concept 2 about the big thing. Here's major concept 3 about the big thing. And then each of those can be broken down further into subparts. And those are the little things that my players start to pick up on, are the subparts of that. And eventually they'll be able to reconstruct it into a whole. Whether that's because they learned enough that the whole is kind of assumed, or they learned just enough about, the connecting points that they can infer the connection.
And I suppose in my case, I take a page out of Ubisoft's book, actually, in the matter of the web of intrigue, where very much more there is this end goal that's at the center of this sprawling web. And, you have point 1, and then you have the major, leads that would bring you to point 1. So let's say, let's see, you have the Kingpin. All right, you got the Kingpin, and, you got the Kingpin's 4 lieutenants. And then these lieutenants are going to have their underlings. And if you're looking for a real long campaign where you are trying, where maybe your group of edge runners is assigned with basically, let's say, the Kingpin is Mr. K. Your group of edge runners, the big job of this campaign is you have to bring Mr. K and his grasp on Night City's economy to its fucking knees. So you gotta learn what helps keep Mr. K in business. Who does Mr. K know that gets all these great buyers in? And you have to find all these different parts that help that while you're investigating, you learn more about who Mr. K is. And I'm not going to talk too much about who exactly Mr. K is because that's in his bio in Black Chrome. But the more you pull this apart, the more the strings all lead towards one point. And once you hit that once you get to the center of the web, that's when that final confrontation happens. And let's hope you've been beating the clock, because something that I've pulled from Blade Runner's book is a countdown where things will be happening in the background, whether you impacted this or not. It might even just happen.
And the really fun thing is if that person, like Mr. K in this case, because I've used him as a villain in my campaign that I'm running right now. If that's not the final boss, and you're trying to like come to terms with, okay, how does this lead us to the final boss? When that person falls, the empire they owned, you should also be aware of like what all did they have control of, because
A lot.
then you can tell the story of like, they're gone, so now their empire begins to crumble. And if that empire includes like the infrastructure in Night City, for example, oh boy, riots and violence and the downfall of society as is understood by the people. That's what we start to deal with. And that's what we're going through right now in Neon Inferno, which is great. I've been having a great time with that, honestly. And like introducing it as like a new problem that the players need to contend with.
And and the line from Blade Runner 2049, I feel really fits this one really well. If for the way they have it is like there is a wall between us and them. If you tell either side there is no wall, you have bought yourself a war or a slaughter. And I feel in this case it's between the have-nots and have-yachts. Yep. Is what's happening right now. That, you know, hey, this whole time, this thing that has supposedly kept you on the other side doesn't actually exist. Suddenly, everyone decides that it's time to get froggy. So yeah, it's just, you know, there are things like that really help bring this together, especially when in all of these investigations, somehow it is still personal to you. Maybe you are investigating what actually happened to that tragic love affair, or what actually went down between you and this enemy that has brought you to this bitter end. Like, sometimes I really like looking at the personal stories. Like one of my players had to have a real good hard look at why their childhood friend is no longer their friend, but their worst enemy.
That's always fun.
And
that is like unironically really
fun. I have caused some serious like, oh dear, I caused some serious issues. Not with players, but with characters, having to really now look like I am actually responsible for the reason why my childhood best friend hates me.
Yeah, that's always fun. That's fun character drama. So yeah, that should give an idea though, as like how we add investigation and intrigue to the point of a Q&A topic at least. So yeah, I don't. If we want to take this still in descending order, we can.
Sure.
The top one might take a little while, so it just depends if we want to answer a lot of these, because I don't know if we have time for all of them this week.
You know, actually, I feel like this one might even just be an interesting, like, just if we don't have a topic for the day, this might actually be one to just kind of keep on hand.
Weird cyberpunk
concepts. Actually, I like that.
Yeah. We can talk about it.
I'll save that for a topic.
Yeah, I was like briefly, like the weirdest one that's come up at a table for me probably, at least out before the HQ thing came out and made this a more promotable thing, was a tech focused on manufacturing drug-laced smoke grenades. That's probably the weirdest concept that I was like, back when I first started playing, I never ever would have thought of it. And you know, kudos to Ghost of the Valley, man. That guy he cooked. And all of a sudden he's making everyone in a room high on blue glass, and it's terrifying.
Weirdest concept that I've had show up at my table as a player. Help, I think the person I'm supposed to marry might be my estranged father. That's going to be the story I'm going to save for this, for later.
That requires a lot more time.
Oh, yeah. But that's what I will leave you with for when we finally come around to this one.
That's got some big I'm my own grandpa energy. That's a beautiful time. All right, Cool. So the next is, when is it too much style or substance? I don't.
Ooh.
Have we found the upper limit?
I have.
Okay.
So, we have a player. I've had a player come to one of my tables who was insistent that they were a nomad biker. All right, they were part of a biker gang. And bikers wear leathers. And for the style, they were going for that style of nomad leathers. I'm like, yeah, you know, you can do that, but you know, you could have, you know, like Kevlar or light armor jack put into your leather jacket. Like, no. We wear leathers like real men. And I'm like, okay, all right. He was really going for the style of wearing those leathers. He went for it when he became, like, literally session 1, a fucking smear across the back alley due to a 6.56 shotgun blast that ended up with strength behind it. So an extra 25 damage on top.
That was an instant flatline, wasn't it?
Round 1. And he was just bitching like, well, you know, and don't get upset when this happens, when you make these decisions, all for the sake of style. Now, for the sake of substance, I've also had characters that come in, you know, wearing their heavy armor jacket, they got their rifle and their shotgun, or like they got their Militech Crusher at their hip, they've got their, you know, assault rifle, and they're all walking up to Club Atlantis.
Let's count all the things on that sort of a character that make them hardened. 1, they're reflex 8. 2, they're solo 4. 3, they've got dex 8 with an evasion of 6. 4, they're martial arts trained. 5, they have a high enough body, right? They go for like 4 or 6 body on that starting stat, and then immediately invest in grafted muscle bone lace and a linear frame sigma. And because they have martial arts now at a high like DV, or the base 14 rather, they can start to like pop the fuck off. They can dodge bullets. It doesn't matter. Like if you have a character like this, 1, they are able to be reasoned with. I will say that. You guys have to throw them into social situations because there's going to be shit at them. Because with all those stats at 8, they are not going to have their social stats high enough, or they're not going to have enough luck to do a ton with it when the time comes, and they need that, right? So
I've had a solo that it was 8 body, 8 will, 8 reflex, 8 dex. Everything else was dumped.
Yeah, because let me think. At that point, you've burned 8. So 8 times 4 is 32 of your 62. So you burn more than half of your stat points,
and then
on 4 of the 10 stats that all need to have at least 2 in them.
And then their empathy was also cranked up to 8, bringing them up to 40. But then that 8 went way down after character creation because of all the cyberware they packed in there. And well, their intelligence was at a 2 and their tech was at a 2. All it takes is an EMP grenade. When you encounter someone with low tech, all it takes is 1 EMP grenade. That's all you gotta do.
Good luck beating a cyber tech check with a base 4. Like have fun, or even a base 2. Like if they've only got 2 tech and no cyber tech, they're just rolling a base 2 against fucking, what is it, a DV13 I think, or DV15?
DV13.
Shit, man, that shit. Yeah, that's not.
Like even at base 8. So like when we talk about all these different parts of style and substance, it's very much like put your money where your mouth is. But also at the same time, if you're just known as, you know, a one-man slaughterhouse, you're not going to be welcome to some people's night markets. You're not going to be welcome to, you know, some people's bars.
One, consider as well that if you're a one-trick pony like that, anyone who studies your crew even a little bit, if you have more ways of solving a problem than wanton violence, you're less predictable. So
Yep.
it's much harder to pin down a solid counter to you. Whereas if you're a one-trick pony solo who just does violent things and isn't very smart, people will know like you can be deceived easily. You're not going to notice subtle details, and you probably just need a good EMP or two to get cooked. So like at the end of the day, you are a different kind of sitting duck. You may not realize it, but you are. So always make a character with substance is kind of the thing, right? Like make it with actual substance, because like just making a maxed out solo is not a substantive character. They require more than that, and it becomes really, really painfully obvious too when the GM counters it the first time, that like you'll see exactly why I'm giving you that advice. But yeah, I think that like it's hard if done right, like if done appropriately, it's hard to have too much style or substance. Because like if you're treating your character like a real person in the real world, those things are hard to find the upper limit of, because as long as you're playing a believable character, you're not playing just a trope, like an action hero trope, right? Like anyone can make a John Wick-esque character, right? But it takes a real like smart player to make a empathetic and a sympathetic character that has flaws and still comes off like a badass, right? So my advice would be, instead of worrying about is this too much, worry about when I play this character, how can they be countered? And try to think about them in that way. Think of giving them a weakness or two to compensate for their strengths, but one that can be overcome with enough clever thinking. That's kind of my thing.
I suppose, like in the case of my, I know I'm going to keep referring over to Skimmer, but that's a character that both Emmerron and I, see, because Emmerron's GM. Of course, I could have gone for Reflex 8. I didn't want to do Reflex 8 this time around. I really didn't.
Yep.
I like Dia had Reflex 8, but that's because I was working with auto fire with SMGs. So, I gotta, it helps. But Skimmer, she's high luck and she's, high cool. What she lacks, what she lacks in her combat capabilities, because she makes up for in her social skills. But, looking at the party, Emmerron, what like if you as a GM looked at our party, between Skimmer, Flash, Eagle, June, and Hex, are we predictable?
No, because you're well-rounded. That's the thing. A well-rounded party is really hard to pin down, because like Eagle's not even that one trick, but like he's got a specialization, which is he's a sniper, right? So the first thing that a analyst probably would look at with the crew and start trying to pick them apart with would be like, okay, they have a support sniper. We need to like be mindful that there's a support sniper.
However, at the same time, Eagle is just as capable at close range.
He is, but he prefers to be a sniper. So that's probably the first thing they're going to pick out, is like, he's a support sniper. Treat him like a support sniper, take him out accordingly. Then the next thing they'd probably look at is they also have a good driver who knows his way around a firefight. So like, be prepared for a high-speed chase, put in resources to counter that, or to disable the vehicle somehow, right? Beyond that, then it starts getting hard, because it's like, we got a netrunner. Great. Well, that netrunner is capable of all kinds of chaos. They've just they've just perpetrated a massive hack on a major healthcare provider in Night City. Like, that's huge, right? That probably will help their reputation if it gets out like they were the one who did it. Then you got Hex, who's like pretty jack of all trades med tech, but like, that's good. You've got backup. So like, if the analyst is looking at that, they're like, yeah, be ready to deal with support, because like, even if we take down some of their members, if we don't kill them completely, their med tech will probably patch them up and they'll be good as new in less than a week. And they just need to find a safe place to hide. And that's where the fixer comes in, because now the fixer knows the best places to hide. Like, so you're like, you got a well-oiled machine, right? Like, between everyone there, you've got, you know, the netrunner, you've got a person who knows their way around the city, you have a solo who's good at keeping an eye out for trouble, you have a med tech whose skills are entirely devoted to being like, you know, supportive to the rest of the crew and bolstering them. And then a driver capable of like covering the entire city as their area of operation and getting them places quickly. So like, that's good. It's hard to predict when you've got a nice, well-rounded group. Individually, I could find a weakness for all of you.
Mm-hmm.
But like as a group, if you're acting as a cohesive whole, it's much harder to tear you down as a whole.
Yeah, I think
that's a good thing.
Yeah, like looking at our group, the only one weak spot that we have, well, it's not even a weak spot. It's just because June actually does a pretty good job of covering like the electronic security tech part of it. And I think Flash does cover some of the basic tech portions as well, but we don't have a dedicated tech.
And Flash is starting to work toward that. He just took a rank in tech.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So he's starting to work toward it to a limited degree, right? But yeah, there's some of that. Like, but that's okay. You guys don't really need a dedicated tech. That's the best part of it. Is like you really have got most everything else. So like,
yeah,
if the tech services is the only thing you need to really pay for, you have a med tech, you have, you know, your fixer to get you stuff, you got the med tech to keep you healthy. The only thing you're paying for is a tech, and you can still get them at a discount. So like, you've got the connections. That's all that really matters.
And then finally, how can execs and lawmen fit into the 3 rules? Oh boy. All right.
That might be another topic maker. Honestly, it's like, all right, how do execs and lawmen fit into a wider Cyberpunk campaign?
If you if you want my hard bullet point answer, there is a reason they're in that book. Now I understand that's a crutch, that yes, their role is in here. But you have to think about it with execs and lawmen. In the matter of style over substance, execs, how you present yourself, it's going to have is just as much impact. If you wear something that very much, or if you carry yourself with a certain MO that makes a statement to the office, to the corporation that you work for, you're going to stick out and probably land that promotion compared to Office Drone B over in the next cubicle. And in the case of lawmen, maybe you have a certain way you go about handling your cases that, you know, you're known for, you know, getting things, you're known as that detective that gets it done in the first 48. Attitude is everything. Go ahead.
Or you're the detective with a heart of gold that does want to genuinely support the community and doesn't support the NCPD in any effort they might take to, you know, push down on the people of Night City. You know, there are some people out there, like it's funny, I have a lawman in my campaign actively right now that I stream, and he is one of those that's like, I genuinely want the community to be okay. So like, how does that kind of a person stack up against a more corrupt NCPD that wants to, you know, make certain groups within the city disappear, right? Or like they want to over enforce certain areas. How do you deal with prejudice when it comes at the end of a gun wielded by a cop? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So he's the kind of answer to that, is like and he's got like a small group of police that left the NCPD with him and formed a PI firm because they don't want to be part of that machine anymore. So like, lawman is a more varied role than it first appears. Execs, while they are a little more narrowly defined within the fabric of the city, corporations aren't one size fits all. Some corporations are very small. I played an exec in one of my games that Diamond ran. So like, and he was a discount turret salesman that worked for a corporation called Greengrass. And their whole shtick was like, we do business with the poorer parts of the city. Our business plan is to be affordable to the underbelly of the city. So like, we like the stuff he would do, he'd be out on the street more often than not because that's where he was selling. And it was like an important aspect of like who he was, that he'd be with a group of edge runners who could help him make these sales and, you know, get down into the clientele and actually help them. So like, yeah, like you're probably still going to play to some level of trope with that. Obviously, like a cop is still going to do the whole hard bit and like, I don't make friends kind of thing. Or like the exec is going to be like selfish and self-indulgent, but they have other motives underneath all that.
And like for me, I'm technically playing exec but reskinned as mobster, where it's very much, you know, I mean, Skimmer is a street level fixer who happens to have a little bit of pull with the piranhas, a very, very small amount of pull, just a little bit. And, you know, she's still out on the street. She doesn't spend her time in high rises. Unless, you know, business takes us that way. Last time we went to a high rise, it got a little weird. And then of course, you know, attitude is everything. You know, standing up to, you know, people that are bigger than you and deciding, you know, are you going to puff your chest out and push back? Are you going to, you know, are you gonna, you know, look at that other prick in the office and be like, no, you are not taking my project from me, and I will send you out the window if you try it?
As an example of this, by the way, that exec I talked about,
Larry,
there was a point, Diamond chose to corner me. She thought she fucking had me too. Like, that was actually that got a little bit personal in a good way. Where like Diamond was playing chess with me, the player, not my character, and she's like, I have footage of you through like a crew of Danger Gal operatives. Says I have video evidence of you taking this gun, and I'm like, is that it? And she just like, I could just hear in your voice, like, you're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, so it's a video that could be fabricated. What is this? This is nothing. Like, so are you going to present some real evidence here, or can we move on? This is a waste of everyone's fucking time here. It's clear, like, this wasn't just called for the best in Night City and even the world beyond it to like rag on me and my corporation. So take that, shove it up your ass, and let's get down to actual business. And it was me bluffing the whole time, like I was guilty as fuck. Didn't let it cross my face.
Attitude is everything.
Right there.
In the case of one of my lawmen, literally had to, you know, look at, you know, a suit that was offering, look, $2,000, get off this fucking case, and I had to say, look, I'm dragging you in. Bribing is not gonna fly well with me, and that's part of the attitude with the, you know, my cop, where, you know, they aren't gonna take that kind of shit. And then finally, of course, you live on the edge. Cops, they have jobs. You could lose your job. I mean, look at Rook. Rook gave up everything. A comfortable life. For what? What does Rook...
His ideals.
Yeah. You have to sit there and decide, do I take this bribe? Do I make my morals convenient for this? Do I, you know, put these people out for, you know, my own well-being?
Yep.
Do I risk my job to do the right thing, or to score myself an extra bonus at work? Those are some things that, you know, I understand, like, execs are a very different level of, like, while they can be street, it's a very different level in some cases, where, you know, sometimes you are finding out, hey, this, you know, my boss is about to backstab upper corporate. Do I go behind my boss's back, full knowing what could happen to me, to save, you know, the people higher up? That there's so much to it.
Well, right. I mean, with execs, it's really fun because you got the two layers, right? You have yourself, your self of what is it? Self-indulgence and like your selfishness, right? Where you like, I want power from me. And then you also have the corporate machine and loyalty, right? It's like, okay, I've got people who are loyal to me, potentially. They're at the very least, they're all loyal to the corporation. I need to make sure they're loyal to me, like me, the person.
Mm-hmm.
And then like, what loyalty do I have to the people up the chain from me? Like, am I loyal to them and I'll just do whatever they say unquestioningly? Or if they try to throw me to the wolves, which did happen with my character, do I bite them back and take their place? Which I did. Quite proudly, I might add.
What?
So there's a whole living on the edge dynamic that happens there, even though exec's role ability could rightly be called privilege with a capital P. It is very, very economically beneficial to play an exec in a campaign of edge runners.
One of my one of the execs in my Saturday night paid group, she's put it on the line for her employees because she felt that their lives were more important than her paycheck, because of what they've done for her. So it comes down to those kinds of things. I do believe they have a place here, and maybe we do need to talk about it. But I am tired of people questioning execs and lawmen's seat at the table. They belong there alongside everyone else in the time of the Red.
I think that the question's a solid one to ask, though, because even I at the beginning of my time with the game was like, what do you mean lawman and exec? Who would ever play those roles? Why would I play a cop or a corpo in the middle of the fucking like dystopian future where they're arguably the largest power players? Like, what? Well, that's not it can be very interesting. I promise you. In the 4 years I've been playing this game, that has become very evident that like they have definitely got a spot at the table, and it's for very good reason, but it requires you to think outside the box of what you would think of as your typical like billionaire C-suite corpo or your super corrupt power tripping cop. You have to think of them less two-dimensionally in order to like understand why they have a seat at the table.
Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. And of course, if you enjoy Wireheads, please go subscribe to Emmerron and go check out his Twitch channel. He has a subathon going on during the month of September, and I just put this announcement on this video for now. Go support what he does. Of course, as always, you can check us out at StartPlaying. You can check us out on Twitch. I highly recommend that. We have some great series on Monday and Wednesday night for Cyberpunk RED. And of course, as always, feel free to follow our Twitch channels. Keep an eye out for wherever we are, even on Spotify. To all of you over on Spotify, thank you so much for listening to us vamp about this game for 23 episodes now. So, also Manic Meek, thank you so much for following. I think on that note, friends, be safe out there, have a good night, and we'll see you next week. Of course, as always, I'm Diamond Dust.
And I'm Emmerron.
Have a good night. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
We are going